Hello world, it's Dr. Keith, the VR doctor, broadcasting again from the comfortable confines of my normal consulting room, having left Oculus Medium and returned to Facebook Spaces. So yesterday we looked a little bit at how you can record the entirety of a consultation to allow patients to revisit it and understand some more. But my question today is, how realistic a proposition is VR consulting? What proportion of the patients might any doctor see that could safely be seen in virtual reality? So to answer this question, last week on Monday, I was sitting pretty much in this place in reality, real reality, as the VR bods call it, and I was consulting with patients. So I had an 8-hour shift and I saw 30 patients. It was a relatively steady day. And during that day, as I was seeing the patients, I was thinking and noting which of these patients might be seen in virtual reality. Which of these patients might not be suitable for seeing in virtual reality? And of course, which of these patients might not want to be seen in virtual reality because they don't like this? Now, patient preference is critical here. At the moment, we have Oculus Rift headset and Oculus Rift hardware that is compatible and powerful enough. And that's actually a very, very small number of people right now. But that's going to grow with time, and the technology is going to get more and more acceptable to the public and cheaper, possibly through smartphones and improved powers there. So if you have people that have the hardware, you may have people that just simply don't want to or aren't physically able to do this. People with certain disabilities, visual and hearing impairment, that might limit their ability to do this. Now I'm going to park that to the side for the moment because I'm looking at what technology can and cannot do. And on that day, I basically found 3 groups. Those that could be managed entirely in virtual reality, those that could be managed in virtual reality with the addition of some extra hardware, and those that couldn't be managed in virtual reality. And I produced this pie chart. Yes, it's a traditional pie chart here, and it's not very, very cool, I'm afraid, but it's going to be useful to identify the numbers here. So group number 1, those patients that could be seen in virtual reality. I found that of the 37% of those patients could be treated exclusively in virtual reality. Now, what sort of presentations were these? Well, these are patients that presented who could actually have most of the problem and treatment managed through straight conversation. So potentially I could manage these patients by phone or video consultation as well. But virtual reality, as I've said in the previous days, adds an extra little bit of benefit to this. And then you have the group which I call VR+, 40% of those patients. And those are patients that could be seen in virtual reality as long as you had access to extra hardware. Now, this extra hardware I've mentioned in previous talks too. And if you look just down here, you'll see my smartphone, which has a TIM otoscope and a Cardia ECG, and my Echo stethoscope is tucked away there somewhere as well. So, looking in patients' ears, measuring their ECG or EKG, and listening to their chest, or listening to their lungs or heart. All of this can be managed using this technology. Oh, sorry about that. So, we have people using their smartphones, and of course, patients use their smartphones already. I had a patient come in on the same day who had a rash that had passed by the time I saw her, and she was able to show me photos, so I was able to diagnose what kind of rash it is that she's had. So, 37% can be managed in virtual reality, 40% can be managed with virtual reality plus, and then what about this section here, the 23%? So that was 7 patients on the day, and of those 7 patients on the day, 6 of them needed abdominal examination. And that physical laying of hands cannot be replaced at the moment by some of these technologies. Now, people may argue the use of smartphone ultrasonography might replace this, but there are certain physical examinations that are required. So virtual reality has to be a safe space in which you can triage these patients and have a workflow they can pass through to the real reality, the physical world where they might be examined. But of course, the doctor could still stay in virtual reality and have an assistant or another clinician working in reality and a window through Facebook Messenger or something similar. I could watch what was going on and ask questions. And one of those patients was a child. And of course, right now, we're not entirely clear what the role of virtual reality and augmented reality in children is. There's evidence building as to whether this is safe or not, but right now everyone's being slightly cautious. So, virtual reality can be used in a large proportion of the patients that I saw on that one day. Of course, that one day may not be representative. I might have been taking a certain view on this. Please take these figures with a pinch of salt, but I still think that there is a significant portion of people that could be seen in immersive media. The other thing that I did on this day, which I think is very useful to talk about, is lab results. Now, part of a doctor's work is filing and administration. And I think that virtual reality might be an interesting place to do this because you can visualize data in a different way. So what do I mean by that? Well, instead of using a chart like this, maybe I could use objects. And of course, here is a very crude pie chart assembled out of objects, which I made in Medium and brought in here as well. In fact, it looks kind of graffiti-like. I'm sorry, it doesn't have a text function. But you can see the components here, which I can then pull apart and visualize and move around for you. And of course, for me, this is much more obvious because these objects are sitting and floating in space in front of me, or I could compare them as well. So this might be one way in which I might be able to look at lab results, numerical data, and understand the quantities a little bit better. Either this or graph charts, or other ways in which I could more quickly identify those areas or those results that might need some action. And of course, it's not just about visualizing it, it's about utilizing the advances in artificial intelligence and voice interfaces. And voice interfaces and virtual assistants are going to be the topic of one of my future talks. Because say, for example, I asked, Alexa, ask Dr. Keith, what is normal potassium range?
I'm sorry, I can't help with that yet, but I'll learn how to do it before we next meet.
Oh, that's not good enough, is it? I also don't like the way that it animates my mouth that way. Let's try something different. Alexa, ask Dr. Keith to order renal tract ultrasound. I'll try that again. Alexa, ask Dr. Keith to order renal tract ultrasound.
Okay, renal tract ultrasound ordered for this patient.
It worked! It worked! You have no idea how long I got to try and do that. Of course, this is just a demo, but in my next episode, I'm going to be talking about the role of virtual assistants, one of the most powerful areas that virtual reality can deliver over and above what's possible in the real world, as well as other forms of telemedicine. So for now, it's goodbye from me, Dr. Keith, your VR doctor. If you'd like to learn more, you can follow me on Twitter @TheVRDoctor, or visit my website, www.drgrimes.co.uk. You can also join my group on Facebook, VR Doctors, and the address will be just here below me. But for now, I'm going to spend a little bit more time playing with my kidney. Cheerio.